Okay, let me go to the bathroom. Come on, let's go. Oh, oh. Are you feeling poorly or do you have to go someplace?
Yeah, my niece, her mother's having some issues that I gotta take her to her.
Okay. All right, yes, to just pop out whenever you need to, and I'll post this along with my notes and stuff.
Okay.
Okay, so in the class last time, we covered a lot of material on linear systems. So given that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about the problem set. So let me, because I said it's not due until the end of class, just for that reason. And then we'll do the new material in just a sec. So let me just grab this and this. Okay, so I have the problem set here, and I have this material here. Okay, so let me just put my glasses on and see what you want to do. And I was going to tell you a fun way that you can use your calculators to do the 3 variables. So that is a much easier way. So that's another thing we can talk about. So tell me, what do you want to do? Do you have any questions about any of them? Just let on. Okay. Okay, so she's joining, Poonam's joining. Okay, so that's good. So we've got Poonam. So I'm just missing one person. So we'll kind of tap dance for a little bit. But is there anything on this problem set that concerns you that you wanted to talk about? So I'm just looking through mine. How did the 3 variables thing go?
No, it was funny because I followed the directions that were from the video. I paused it at that point and looked at the step-by-step directions, and I tried it like 3 times and I kept getting different answers.
Oh,
Then I went online and I found a YouTube video and it walked me right through it. So it was probably me, but for whatever reason, I could not get it from the directions. I just, and the way the guy said it was almost the same way. There was a slight variance, but yeah, and then I got it right away. So
okay,
it was probably just a block on my part.
Yeah, well, whatever it takes is, I'm good with that. But so big picture, when you have 3 variables, you're definitely going to have 3 equations. So if it's not set up so that everything with variables is on the left and the plain number without a variable is on the right, that's the first thing you would do. Ours is set up that way, so it's fine. Then what I would do is I would use 2 of the equations. And I think I used, when I did it, I used the second and the third. And I was able to drop out the z. Then I used the first and the second and also dropped out the z. Then I used the 2 equations I just had and solve for the x. And that let me then plug my x back into one of the equations that I had, just a 2x and a y in, and solve for the y. And then I went back up to the top and plugged it in, plugged the x and the y in, and solve for the z. So that's what I did. So in Poonam, you want to look at yours because your answers are not what I have. So, and I didn't have a chance today. I was going to open it up and do it algebraically. So I graded half of yours and I got to that almost that second to last question, just third to last or so. And you want to maybe look back at that.
Sure, I will do that. The possibility is like, with up and down, I might have. I have a habit of saying a number and writing a different number. So that could be it. But I think the process worked. Don't you think so?
You got nice numbers, but they just didn't match my nice numbers.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure rather than adding, I subtracted somewhere and then whole thing.
But was what I wanted to do, Punam, is I wanted to figure out where the mistake was and then do follow through from there.
Mm-hmm.
So
I
that
will
I'm
do
gonna
that
take
on
off a
purpose.
little bit for the whatever, it's an algebra type thing. Because your procedures look good. I think there's just an algebra mistake someplace. So if you, I'm not gonna probably grade them tonight, so if you find it and want to repost it, go ahead.
Yeah, I will do that. Sure. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you.
You're
I will do
welcome.
that. Yeah.
But
Thank
why
you.
don't I show you a kind of fun way to do this?
Sure.
Because back in the day when I was teaching honors algebra 2, we always taught matrices, and they have dropped that from the curriculum. They've dropped it from the SAT and ACT, and that kind of was the driving force while we don't teach that. So those of you that are teaching high school, are they still teaching matrices? Because they are fabulous. So I'm just gonna get my TI 84. So are you interested in seeing an easy way to do it? That make
Sure.
anybody happy? Come on, I need a little enthusiasm.
Oh, yes, I'll take all the easy ways.
Okay, so let me do one thing first. So I have my calculator that's ready to go. But I think what I want to do is I want to set it up on the iPad. So let me see if I can just get just a plain old blank page. And I'm going to do the one, let's see. Why don't I do the one that's from the video? And we'll see if that is good. And then you can, if you wanted to use your graphing calculator, you can to set it up. If you like it doing it the other way, that's fine. You know, it's a good skill to have. Okay, so I'm going to just grab this and go all the way back here. Okay, so let me share this screen. Okay, so just give it a second to do its little thing. There we go. Oh, good. Perfect. Okay, so this is now blank, so that's good. Okay, so what you want to do, this is the equation we had. So yeah, okay, let me just get a drink of water. It says solve the following system of 3 equations in these variables using the steps outlined below. So they've done the little outline, but this is, so if I have, let me just get my pencil work. This is 2x plus 3y minus z equals 11. And this is from the video, just so you know where it's coming from. And then I have 5x minus 2y plus 3z equals 35. And then I have x minus 5y plus 4z equals 18. So now, because everything I'm doing depends on having written this correctly, I'm just gonna look and make sure that everything is okay. Okay, so I think that is correct. Okay, so this is what I want to do. I'm going to set this up as A times X equals C. That's going to be a matrix. My A matrix consists of all of the coefficients of the variables. So my top row is going to be 2, 3, -1. Second row is going to be 5, -2, 3. And then my third row is going to be 1, -5, 4. Does everyone see where I got those coefficients from? I just read across, and if I had a negative z, I made that just a -1. So let me make sure that that all looks good, and it does. So then my x column is actually x, y, z. Those are all my variables. And then that has to equal my constants, which are 11, 35, and 18. Okay, so the numbers are in the A matrix and the C matrix. The A matrix is a 3 rows by 3 columns. The X matrix is a 3 rows by 1 column, and the constant matrix is also a 3 by 1. Okay, my goal is to solve for X, Y, and Z. So I need to take this matrix right here, and I would divide through by that if I was doing just algebra, right? You can't really divide through using matrices. So what you're going to do is, this is the A matrix. You're going to multiply this by the inverse of that, which is called the A minus 1 matrix. That ends up canceling it. So think of it this way. If I had 1x times x, see how that makes that just a 1? Same idea here. Okay, whatever you do on the left side, you've got to do on the right side. But in order to make it conform, I have to put that right here, because this is a 3 by 3, and to multiply by a 3 by 1, the middle terms have to be the same. So that's why I'm going to put it there. So that's my plan, okay? Then what's going to happen is I'm going to say, and why don't I do it in math language? So I'm going to say my X, Y, and Z matrix, which is my C, is going to equal the A minus 1 times the C matrix. And I'm sorry, this is my X matrix. Okay, so that's the underlying premise. Now, how are we going to do that? So now it comes to the fun and games. I'm going to go into my graphing calculator. So let me go into, I'm going to have to share that screen. So let me do that. This is share screen, and this is that. Okay, so can you see that screen? So someone said something. Can you see the screen?
No.
Okay, so maybe I didn't share screen. So let me share screen. Oh, yeah, good. Okay, here and then here. Okay. Now you can see it, right? Okay, so do you see over here, this word is matrix. It's written in blue. So I'm going to go up and I'm going to say second. That's going to give me the blue keys matrix. Okay, and that gives me all these lovely matrices. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go across the top, and I'm going to edit this matrix right here. So I'm going to say, please let me edit that. And I'm going to make it a 3 by 3. Okay, and I'm going to hit enter, and now it makes it all my placeholders. So I take my numbers just the way they were. So I have 2, I have 3, I have -1. Okay, so that's a problem because I typed it in that way. So hold on, go to 2. Okay, so I can't do a negative like that. I have to go back to the keyboard. So that's going to be -1. So I've got that. That's my top row. Hit enter. It takes me to the next row. So I'm going to type in 5. Enter. And now I have another negative. So I'm going to say -2. Enter. And then I'm going to say 3. Enter. So I've got 2 rows done. Then I'm going to say 1. Enter. -5. Enter, and 4, enter. Okay, so that's done. So I'm going to say now that that's all set, I'm going to say second, quit. Okay, I'm going to get out of that. I'm going to go back into second matrix, and I'm going to now build my C matrix. So I'm going to go across the top and edit this matrix. Okay, I would like that one to be a 3 by 1. So I say I want a 3 by 1, and that's the default is the 1. I'm going to type in my constants, which is 11, enter, 35, enter, 18, enter. Okay, so now I have both the matrices built. Now I'm going to get out of my matrices by saying second quit. And now I'm going to do multiplication. So I want to say a to the -1 times c. So I'm going to go to matrix again, second matrix, and instead of sorry, hit the wrong key. Second matrix. And instead of doing anything to it, I just want to grab it. So I want the A matrix. So I grab the A matrix, but I don't want the A matrix. I want it to raise to the -1 because I have to do the inverse, so to speak. So I'm going to grab, I'm not going to do that. Hold on a second. Let me get out of that. Can I do that? No, it's going to go back. Okay, let me go back. Let me go back. Okay, let me say second quit there, and that should take me back to where I need to be. Yes. So here's my A matrix. I'm going to hit this X to the -1 key. Boom. Then I want to multiply that by the C matrix, which I'm going to call the B matrix in this. So I'm going to come back in and say second matrix and multiply it by that second matrix. Then I'm going to say enter. There are my answers. The X is the 3. The 5 is the Y. And the Z is the 10. Is that not beautiful?
Professor, can I ask you a question?
Uh-huh.
How do we find the inverse of a matrix without a calculator? I never did it, or I don't remember it.
So for a 3 by 3, you kind of do the diagonals and then you subtract and then you do the diagonals the other way. So there's a whole method for doing it that is a lot of algebra. The easiest way is just to say a to the -1. So you don't want to be doing a 3 by 3 by hand if you have this option. But what you do is you take those values.
Can you show me like 2 by 2 example? Just want to see how it is done, like the easiest one, 2 by 2.
So a 2 by 2, let's see how I would do that. If I'm going to inverse, I have to think about that for a second. So off the top of my head, I cannot, but I will post it for you.
Oh, that would be great because
No, because it's fun to do. I just haven't done it in about 20 years. But it's very fun to do. And then you can also get the determinant. There's tons of things to do, but we just dropped it from the curriculum. But I couldn't believe that they dropped it when they had systems of equations because that's like the best way in the world to solve
I
that.
know.
Because it's
Because
so quick.
How to say, this is pretty interesting because my son, he's my personal mathematician. Okay, he's the one who, if I have a problem, we sit together and help me solve my problem set. Okay, so
yep, I have some like it too.
I would like him to be challenged. I'm pretty sure nobody's going to teach him any of this. So I would like to know how to do it.
I will, by the end of the night, I will send it to you because I was going to do that today. I show you how to do it by hand, but then I just ran out of time to set it up.
No,
So
it's okay.
I will do that for you because it is so super cool.
Yeah,
And
thank you so much.
I would like to personally get matrices back in people's kind of, thought process because it's such an easy way to manipulate large amounts of data and like get these kind of answers.
It's pretty interesting. I mean, I remember doing some stuff, but I learned math in my language, my mother tongue.
Yes.
So there is a possibility I have done it, but I just don't remember it as doing it as an inverse of a matrix. So would love to see it and maybe teach him because trust me, he teaches me all the stuff all the time.
Yeah, no, I'll definitely say I'll put it out to the whole class and I'll let you guys know when it's posted. Because
thank you so much.
I think matrices are the coolest things. And it's not the 3 by 3s are a little bit harder, but they're certainly not impossible. And it's just they just work so well to handle large amounts of data. And a lot of times they work behind the scene for computers. So
yeah, that's what happens.
We're still using them, but we're just not teaching it in school anymore because we tend to follow the needs of the SAT and the ACT. And then what college tells us too. So they're not really doing it either. Because I teach a lot of college. I tutor a lot of the good counsel kids that go to college, and I have yet to have them ask me a matrix question. And even with my own kids, I helped my son, Kevin is my youngest, and he had a calculus class, and I would do it with him, on Zoom, because he was at University of Dayton. And his girlfriend's an engineer, but if she couldn't help him, on the rare times that she couldn't get to it, I would be always doing it. And then she would help him with chemistry. That was our deal. But it never came across a matrix problem. And they're great because you saw how little time that took me to do it. Like you're not going to make any algebra mistakes doing it this way.
So it's like a minute.
Yes.
The whole thing. Yeah.
And it would have been taking me less time had I not had to use the computer to hit the button on the calculator. Because that's what slows me down. I can do this really quickly on the calculator. And the key is just make sure that what you're putting in is what you see in front of you. And it's always worth to check once or twice because everything you put in determines your answer. And that little extra check does it. So that's it. That gives me the constant or the X matrix. And because my data was set up so that the X was the first coefficient, the first coefficient was on the X, the second coefficient was on the Y, and the third coefficient was on the Z. That's why that's organized as AYZ, XYZ. Okay, so that's my little fun thing for today. But I will show you how to take the inverse of matrices, and I'll kind of write this out a little bit because I think it's a nice little addendum to doing these kind of problems where you have a systems of equation that involves more than just two equations. Once you get to three equations, it makes a huge difference.
These are the things we need to have in our sleeve when you cross paths with a genius. I have a couple of kids who blow my mind. I want to blow their mind once in a while.
Oh, they would love this, yeah, because it's really fun. And when we were doing systems of equations in Honors Algebra 2, they loved it.
This is wonderful.
They couldn't believe it because, of course, we had them do it by hand, like forever and ever. And then we said, oh, by the way, another way you could do it. And they're like, oh my gosh, why didn't you try this first? But anyway, it's the coolest thing. So that's what I wanted to definitely share with you today. So that in terms of what else we've got going on, so I was going to, after I said, did anybody have any questions with anything that was done in the videos, I was going to go through the graphing inequalities, the addendum to chapter 3. So I want to show you what that looks like. So I have it posted. So let me just see if I can find, I'm going to put this problem set away. Okay. So Mira, I said if you wanted to go back over any of that problem set in light of like what I just did now to kind of check it, you can do that. I won't be opening it until probably tomorrow at the earliest. So you can do that. And the other thing I said, I don't know, for your paper, I said for all the papers, maybe I wasn't clear enough that I wanted you to look at one chapter in that history book. And kind of the synopsis is about that one chapter. And then you're supposed to weave in these two other articles that pertain to the same topic. So since we're an algebra class, there's a lot of algebra type topics in that textbook. So that's how I wanted you to set it up. So if you think that, the grade I gave you, and I forget off the top of my head who had what grade, but if you want, I would accept it again if you wanted to resubmit it in light of what I just said now.
Professor, a question before we move on.
Yes.
So there is one assignment which says presentation topic. What are we expected to submit? The presentation?
So I would just say, whatever your journal article is that's coming up next. So we have, let's see, the reflection paper that's due November 12th. When you pick a paper that pertains to something in the algebra course,
Mhm.
I would pick a paper that you can then do a presentation on and have it be something, if at all possible, that you can use in your life. Now, I know a lot of you, are teaching the lower levels, that's gonna be a bit of a stretch. But have it be something that looks kind of interesting that you could use. So that's my thought on that. So whatever you're looking for the next one, have that be what you're gonna do your presentation on. Only because it's gonna half your effort. You could then find another article to do the presentation on, but then that's looking for another article. So I would look for the next one and have that be a double dipping where you can also use that in your presentation. Does that make
Professor,
sense?
we have one more paper?
So I think there's a second reflection paper. Number 2 is due next class, and that is on the November 12th.
So you don't have it in there on November 12th.
We
Oh,
don't
when do
have
I-
anything.
Do I have anything?
We don't have anything. We are.
Okay, did I
think-
drop off that paper?
So
Yes, Professor,
November
there's no-
12th, you have chapter 8, sections 1 and 2. Then
Right.
there is the video that you have set up for that chapter 8, sections 1 and 2. And then you're giving us problem set number 4,
So look above where it says November 5th. And it
November
says test
5th.
for chapter 3, right? And then doesn't it say the due reflect paper number 2 due next class?
No.
Okay. so
I
let me
have that
figure
on
that out.
mine.
So did I just say that we're only doing 2 papers, 1 paper and 1, because I may have.
Yeah,
So-
Professor, I did not remember seeing the third one.
Okay, so let
I
me,
was so relieved.
yes, so if you're so relieved, that's okay.
So I just want to make sure, and
I
your
have it,
table
I
of
have
contents.
2 reflection papers in my printout.
Yeah, I have 2 reflection papers in mine too.
So that's when it was. So I have to look at my calendar and figure out well, let me look at that right now. So hang on, let me minimize you guys for a second. Don't take it personally. And I want to get into Brightspace so we can figure this out because I don't want to mislead anybody. Okay, so let me go into here, and then once I get it up, I'll share it. Okay, so let me go back into here, and let me say share screen. And let me go here and say share. Okay, so that's the Brightspace. So now let me go in here. And then let me. So where did I put the,
They're in the technology integration requirement and expectation section of the syllabus.
It's in class 1,
yeah, that's what I want to do, class, sometimes.
Class
sometimes I
1,
put it, I
and
got
it's
it,
the
Perfect.
Riley MAT 546.
yep, got it. Sometimes I put it in the overview statement. So I was looking there. Okay, so I have to move you people. Luckily, you don't feel me moving you all around my screen. Okay, so then down here, I know I have it in the verbiage, but then let me look at my little calendar, what I did. Okay, so do you have the same thing I'm looking at? Reflection paper number 2 due next class?
I do.
I don't. I'm holding,
So it's
The-
due the 12th, but there's no slot in the 12th for it. I just wanted to point
Right.
that out.
Okay, yeah, so I know, I figured out that I must have had a slot for it. So why don't we do this? Why don't you pick a reflection paper? Don't write about it, just do a presentation on it.
oh, thank God. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
does that sound like a
Thank
reasonable, I'm a
you, thank
reasonable
you
person.
so much.
Okay, so that works. So that means that you may want to redo that second paper if you didn't get a high enough grade, because now there's only 2 papers going into the grade. But so that's what I would say about that. So you
Professor-
would just, why don't you just send me, so when it says reflection paper number 2 due next class, why don't you at some point send me the paper you're gonna use? And I'll put that down further here so that you have time to look around. But I'll add it someplace and I'll tell you about it. And then you're gonna do a presentation based on that. So your presentation should have, some Google slides that you can kind of go through with us. Tell us how you would incorporate it into a class. Tell us the key things that you hope to impress on your students. So a lot of times what you're doing is you're taking a topic and you're saying, okay, I want this to be more engaging. So I found this article that had kind of a neat activity. And then you would kind of walk through that activity with us through slides. Does that make sense? So that's what I'm looking at. Okay, so no paper, but let's just do the presentations. And we're going to do them on December 3rd. And then before we start the presentations, I will say, do we have any questions that we know we have to go over prior to the final? Make sure that we get that in as well. If it looks like there's too many questions, then maybe what we'll do is we'll just start the presentations and then figure out another time for the rest of the questions. So we'll just kind of play it by ear. Because that test is not a final exam, it's only on chapter 8. So really, you'll make sure that you understand what we're doing in chapter 8 as we go along. And then this review should be, pretty short. But, I'll review as much as you want to review. But I'm just saying a good thing to do is just keep on top of it and you'd be okay.
Okay.
And then
That was a good thing.
are there any specific places where we should find these articles? I saw in the syllabus, it said something.
So, I think you have access to the library and to the journals that are listed there. That's where you want to find it. You want to go to math journals. So, so I have a journal right here. Hang on one sec. So this is like the MCTM journal, and it's for teachers of math, and so it's nctm.org. It's National Council of Teachers of Math. They have a lot of good journal articles, and they have a middle school version of it too. So if you go to look up the National Council of Teachers of Math, that will help you. Okay, because they have high school level, this is high school level, and they have middle school level, and I think a little bit lower as well. So they have some good ideas in here, and that may even, give you another idea, another way to incorporate something that you would normally already do. So I would look at that. So go to your library, access that. The librarians are really good to contact you online too. If you're having difficulty searching for something, they're phenomenal about that. But that's where you get it, and you have access to it, so you should have a passcode and all those good things.
Well, it says JRME or a TCM.
Right, so this is TCM.
That's a TCM?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess it's CTM technically, but yes, National Councils of Teachers of Math. And anything along those lines. But you want to have like a review journal, technically is what they want. So that it's a journal that people go to look up things.
One other thing, can you, like the last class or the last time we took a test, can you post it at, I don't know what time you made it available, but that was great because it allowed me to sit there and work through it and I didn't have to rush or anything.
Okay, and I know that for those of you that need to print it, I think I opened it at like 3 o'clock. Can that work
Yes.
out okay? For
Yes,
those that are
perfect.
printing?
It works perfectly.
Okay, so I'll do that again. I'll post it by 3 and I'll be available by cell phone. So just don't hesitate to text me if something has gone awry or you're having some difficulty posting or whatever, or something's not clear on the test.
Okay.
Okay, so that was good. So we got lots of good work done there. So I'll make a note also somewhere on our classes that we're not doing that paper, and then I'll give you a date that I want you to post your journal article by so that we have an idea of what you're going to present on. And I think I said, what, 5 to 10 minutes? So I think I talked about how I'm going to grade that in here. So let me just look at that. Okay, so you'll have 10 to 15 minutes to present, and you can use either PowerPoint or Google Slides. So you're presenting the ideas in the article to share your reflections on the content. So you're gonna share both the pedagogical and mathematical content, give examples to demonstrate how the ideas in the article were or could be implemented in your classroom or in a classroom for that level. Including your slides, a reference page, and example classroom handouts / lesson plan ideas that are appropriate. Okay, so that's a 28-point activity, and I'm gonna grade it according to the rubric. So the top thing is overview of activity, evidence of personal reflection on mathematical content. So that's one thing. Evidence of personal reflection on pedagogical content, application in classroom examples, handouts, etc. Organization of presentation, clarity and effectiveness in presentation, response to questions. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bullet points. That means that each one's worth 4 points. So as you're planning your presentation, make sure you're clicking all these off. Okay, does that make sense? They have any questions on that? Okay, so let me get to, and I don't understand why we have 2 different agendas, so that's weird, but I'll check that and make sure that the one I have that I'm using is the one that I've posted and the one that I want to use. And then we'll be good. So are we ready to look at the addendum to chapter 3? So that's just going to give us some more practice ideas. And then I also have, I believe, other practice material as well that we can go over as need be. So let me stop sharing this and go back to this. Let me close that out. Okay, so let me share my iPad again. So Poonan, as I'm doing this, so you dropped the calculus class. Did they tell you you didn't need it, or did you find that you're going to do it a different time? Or did you find...
No, Professor, I was able to find a 4-credit class with University of Phoenix. So
Oh, great.
Why? I
Great.
mean, I told you I have to give 3 praxis before June. So it's
Oh, yes.
not worth me taking 2 classes. It's again a calculus class. It's not like non-calculus.
Uh-huh.
So I'm still learning calculus, but as I talked to you, there is no way University of Notre Dame is offering any 4-credit class.
Right, they're not.
They're not. And I was like, is it worth me spending like 4 months or 5 months on 12 credits, 6 credits, rather than just doing it in 7 weeks and be done with it?
Right. No, I think you made a good decision. So University of Phoenix.
Yes, and it's how to say it, nothing against you or the syllabus. It's just math class. There is no writing. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. It's not my decision about the writing, although sometimes
No. I know that. I'm just saying, I was a little relieved because at this moment, I just want to finish my credits and get ready for my practice, because
right. No, it makes
it's not a joke. Finish within like 4 months. So yeah.
No, it works for me.
I wanted to write you an email, but then I was like, we'll see each other, so I'll just tell you like what was going on.
That's fine, because I started it Monday. So we've had 2 classes, but it's so fast because it's only 8 classes.
I know, it's just like,
and that's supposed to cover the test too. So I had to rewrite the whole curriculum so I can kind of get in what I need to get in. So anyway, I think it's good, but we'll see. But so far, so good. The people that are in it are doing well, so it's good.
Yeah, thank you so much for asking. I was like,
oh, you're welcome.
I made a, how to say, calculated good decision being a math person. I was like, fine. But at this moment, I genuinely want to save time so that I'm ready when January hits and I'm on track of doing my practice.
Yep, no, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go over some of these things. Now, a lot of these things you may already know, but I have everything listed here. So inequalities are exactly what they sound like. They're equations where the sides are not equal. Okay, so this symbol means less than. So think of it as a sideways L. Okay, so this is less than. Okay, and then the other way is greater than. If you have a little equal sign, then you have two things going on. It can be less than or equal to. Okay, if you have a greater than symbol and an equal sign into that, that can be greater than or equal to. And if it just is not an equal sign with an X through it, that's not equal to. Okay, so you tend to call these strict inequalities because there's no equal sign at all. Okay, so how do they impact numbers? So the inequality, so you would say this is y is less than 2. It means that y can be any number less than 2. But a couple of things about that. So any number less than 2, if you're going to do interval notation, then you would write that as from negative infinity all the way to 2, but you're not including 2. So the paren tells me I'm not including 2. On a number line, what you would do is if you had a negative 2 here, you would have an open circle and an arrowhead going this way to the left. Okay, that's two ways to do the y is less than 2. Okay, so then I'm going to change my color and say, let's do this in green. The inequality y is greater than 7 means that y can be any number greater than 7. So it's greater than 7. So you start at 7, but you're starting at not equal to it. That's why you have the paren. And you can go all the way to infinity. Okay, that's interval notation. In terms of a number line, what you would do is you'd say, okay, it has to be greater than 7. Start with 7. I know it seems counterintuitive, but you're going to put an open circle there. That allows you to include a number like 7.00000005. If you don't start in 7, you're going to be excluding numbers that you don't want to exclude. Okay, so interval notation is with the parens, and then the other one is number line. Okay, the inequality y is less than or equal to 2. So let's do that in blue. That means that y can be any number less than 2, or it can be equal to 2 itself. So that means that you're going to come from negative infinity all the way to 2, but now you can equal to, so interval notation tells us to use that little half box. Your number line gets changed as well. If this is where your 2 is, you're going to have a filled in circle, and then your arrowhead's going to go to the left. Okay, last but not least, the inequality y is greater than 7. So I'll do that in brown. So you're going to, again, we'll do the number line first. If I'm at 7, I'm going to have a filled in, and I'm going to go this way. In terms of interval notation, y has to be greater than or equal to 7. I'm going to actually start at 7 with a bracket and then go all the way that way to infinity. Infinity always has a paren because it's a concept, not a number. The numbers have parens if they're excluded. That means that if you have a strict inequality. The numbers have a bracket if you have an equal sign with your inequality. Okay, how is that? Is that comfortable? So those are 4 good examples. So then let's see what else we have here. So we have graphing. This is exactly what I was just doing. How would I do that as interval notation? Well, it has to be greater than negative 3.5. That means I can't include it. So it's going to be a negative 3.5 here, comma, infinity. And that's how I would write that. So now this next one's kind of interesting. This is the one that my pre-calc kids always have struggles with. If I said put this in interval notation, all you're seeing is you have this gap right there at 3/4. you're allowed to equal everything else. So you would have to say, come from negative infinity, go all the way to 3/4, but you can't equal it. Then you're going to unite that with 3/4 all the way to infinity. So that's telling you that all you're doing is you're omitting the 3/4. All else is included. Okay, so that's what that is. That's example 2. So then, let's see what we have here. So then they say, look at, if you switch the terms on either side of the inequality, be careful to change the sign too. So what if they said something like this? 6 is less than X. And I said, write that please, so that your variable is on your left. Start reading it from your variable. That says X is greater than 6. Okay, these are equivalent, but usually you put the variable on the left. And there's a couple of good reasons for that. It's kind of just what math people do. But look at this nice little feature. This says, here's your variable on the left. For example 1, J is greater than negative 3.5. A lot of times you have these little arrowheads. Well, look what I see. The arrowhead is heading the same way as this symbol. That's only going to work if your variable's on the left side. Okay, so that's like a nice little bonus, because I didn't have arrowheads written on these, but know that it continues without end unless I tell you otherwise. Okay, so then you have things called compound inequalities. So you can build your compound inequalities. So if this is telling you that you're going to be this or that, so the left side of it says y has to be greater than -1. Okay, I don't have an equal sign, so this is really the paren, right? And this is going to be -1 to infinity in terms of interpreting that with interval notation. And then look, your other option is that y is less than or equal to -3. So here you go. You can equal -3 this time. So you're going to start at your -3. Actually, take that back. You're going to always start at the lowest number, which is negative infinity all the way to -3. That's your interval notation for that. Since it's an or, for an or inequality, we combine all possible values of y onto one number line. So you can take your two pieces and you can put them right down here. So as long as your number you're looking for, the variable you're looking for, is either in this first piece to the left or this piece to the right, it satisfies the problem. Okay, and notice that these are, well, this, I don't know why this came this way. So let's fix this so it looks like it did above. This one should be filled in. So fill that one in. It printed a little bit lighter, but that is filled in because I don't have a strict inequality. This one is not filled in because I cannot equal that value. Y has to be greater than -1, so I can't include -1, so I put an open circle. Since I can include the -3, I have a closed circle. So I'm going to say I'm going to include the -3, so close the circle or fill it in. Okay, so we've got a couple of more of these. So what if we have an and equality? So if you have an and equality, both things have got to hold. Okay, so you can break it up. If it says and, then go ahead and let's break it up. We'll do the left side first. So this says, and I would prefer doing it this way. I would write it definitely as z is greater than -0.5. Okay, I just like that way a lot better. I never like it going this way, even if I'm interpreting it from this. Just start reading from the center. So start your eyes here and say z is greater than -0.5. Excuse me. And that's what you get. Okay, so what does that look like in interval notation? This is gonna be negative, I'm just gonna make it negative 0.5, and then all the way to infinity. And then the other piece of it, so this is another piece, is this one. And you're gonna start at positive 0.25, and this says z is less than or equal to that. That's why this is filled in. In terms of interval notation, you would say negative infinity all the way to 0.25. Always go low to high and use the box when it's filled in. But now we're not done. We can put it on one number line, but remember, if it says and, then both conditions have to hold. So all you graph is the overlap. Now look, this got too light again. Make sure that looks dark for you. This is the overlap. That's all that can be in your answer because you have to have both conditions hold the whole time. Okay, so just figure out where they overlap, and you can kind of see it if you look here. They're going to overlap from here to here. So you start here with the open circle. They started with the open circle, and you finish with the closed circle. That's how we got what we have here. So this is an and condition. For the or, you don't have an overlap. You're going to do exactly what they say, and it's all good. Okay, so then it says graph these following ones. So let's see if we can do some of these. So this is an or, so it doesn't matter. And I'm going to say, let's do this. So I'm going to put my x in the middle. And I'm going to say x is less than, whoops, or equal to 4. And x is greater than 3. So if I see that, then when I do my number line, I'm just going to have a 3 and a 4 because I'm not going to go crazy with my numbers. Where I have the 3, is that open or closed? What do we think? Hopefully we're saying open. So this is open,
Open.
right? And then this guy is going to be closed. And so this is what you have. So x is less than, hold on a second, let me not do that, that's crazy. Okay, so I have those two dots, and then I'm going to say x is greater than negative 3 and less than negative 4, so I am going this way. So that's all I have. So remember, this is open, and this is closed. It's open because it is a strict inequality right here, no equal sign. The second you see an equal sign, close it. So how can I write this with interval notation? I would just have 3, 4. The 4 has a box because it's closed, and the 3 has a paren because it's open. Okay, now if they just say to graph this inequality, you can just take that for what it's worth and not worry whether it's an and or an or. We're going to assume that it's an or if they write it like that. So looking at this, I have my number line. P has to be less than 5. So here's 5. It's going to be an open circle. And then it has to be greater than or equal to negative 5. Here's negative 5. That's going to be a nice closed circle. And it has to fall in between. So it's going to go right in here. So that would be my solution. How would I write that with interval notation? This is closed and this is open. Done. Okay, now here comes the and. So here's the and piece. That means that both conditions have to hold. So let's draw 2 number lines initially. So here's one. Here's another one. The first one says y has to be less than negative 2. So here's a negative 2. Here's a negative 2. Y has to be less than that. So that's going to go that way. Okay, and y has to be greater than 1. So if this is 1 and this is 1, so, and it's an and, so it's kind of goofy because this is going to be also, let me just make sure I made that a little bit too close for my liking. So this is y has to be less than -2, boom. And y has to be less than, greater than 1. So this one's going this way. So there's really no overlap. So I think I would just keep it like that and write it as 2 separate things. Very frequently, they will do it so that there is an overlap that you're going to decide and you can put it on one graph. But in this situation, I think I would leave it as 2. So you can either have a solution, you have to have a solution that fits both. And can you have a solution that fits both? I can't think of how you could do that, right? So graph the following inequality, y has to be less than -2 and y is simultaneously greater than 1. So there's really no solution when you have this because you have no overlap. And it's the word and that's doing it. If it said or, so if I said y has to be less than -2 or y has to be greater than 1, then I would just draw my one line and I would say that I could have numbers this way or with an open circle here, or I could have numbers this way. But there's no and to that word because I can't have both things happening at once. Okay, so that's my thought on that. Anybody else have any different thoughts on that? I mean, when they say and, they're looking for an overlap. And I don't have one, so therefore there's no number that will satisfy both of those things simultaneously. Or if you have an answer of -3, totally fine. That's going to be on that number line. I could accept it. If I had an answer of 0, I couldn't accept it. So that's all I had for this, but I think I may have put other things up. So I listed some graphing activities here. Did I put these on the work for the other day? Because we can do some of these too. So I don't know if I forget whether or not we did them. Let me just look and see how I handled it on the other thing. So if I go back to here and hang on one second, and once I get out of here, then I will open this up for you to see. Because I think what I did, I put together more work that would give you more practice if you needed it in terms of solving things. So today is the 29th, hard to believe. Okay, so yeah, so I have graphing activities right here. So I was going to go over graphing activities also, as many as we needed. So I have them, and let me unshare that. Let me get out of here. And here I am back again. Okay, so I have them on my iPad. So there's a whole bunch of them that are listed. We can do any or all of them. So I've done some of them. So what we can do is we could break up into groups and look at that. So let me show you what I'm looking at right now. So if I go here and here, let me just share this screen. Okay, so let me close this out. All right, so we have this. So we just had, Shannon had to run, so I'm gonna just keep recording this and we'll post this for her. So this has graphing inequalities and it's just graphing them on a number line. So it's only one number. So for example, I just did this one, R is greater than 2. And remember, you have an open circle here because you have an inequality here. So these are okay. We could do any of these that you want. I will caution you with 2 of them. This one and this one. I always tend to rewrite them. So I would write it this way. V, and then read it from V's perspective, is less than or equal to -2. And this is why I do that. I put it right over it. I go to -2. I put a big old dot. And I know the less than numbers are this way. I can kind of verify that because see how that inequality is heading the same way? So it kind of gives me an extra little check. So I prefer to have the variables on the left. So I would do the same thing with this guy over here. So read it from V's perspective. V is less than or equal to -5. And so what I would do is I would go to -5. I have an equality there. It has to be less than. I'm heading this way, and then I can look, and sure enough, that arrow is heading the same way. So I've kind of affirmed my answer. So I think you guys are pretty good at this very simple stuff. So let's look and see what else we have that would be helpful. And I think this falls under that. So I'm going to erase what I have here so I can just talk about it. Okay, so really important thing. In order to solve this, you have to first isolate that x. So if you look at this first problem, it says -12 is greater than x minus 7. Okay, so there's some rules about moving these variables and these numbers. So if you divide by a negative, it's going to flip the inequality sign. That's your number one rule. If you divide or multiply by a negative, flip the inequality. So you want to definitely know that. If you add or subtract, it doesn't matter. It's only if you divide or multiply by a negative, then you have to flip it. So if I'm going to do this problem and I want to isolate my x, so I have -12 is greater than x minus 7. So I'm going to get the x on the right side just temporarily. I'm going to add a 7 here. When I add a 7, I didn't do anything with division with a negative, so I'm totally fine to leave that direction the same for the inequality. So that's going to be a -5 is greater than x. Okay, because when I do this, that's gone. So x is less than -5 is how I would read it. X is less than -5. There's no equal sign. Go to -5, put an open circle, and head this way. Okay, that arrowhead is facing the same direction as the inequality. Life is good. Okay, so why don't we try some of these? So I have 4 of you left, so that's perfect. So why don't we break it up into a couple of teams? Why don't we say, let's do, I'm looking for ones I can maybe, well, let's do 3, let's do 6, let's do 7, and let's do 8. And then see what you get, graph it, and we'll come back and we'll share. Okay, so let me stop. Everyone have the numbers we're going to do? 3, 6, 7, 8. And then I can put you into breakout rooms. So let me do this. We want to have 2 breakout rooms. And there you go. So once you see it, you can hop in.
determine the inverse of a 3x3 matrix. So let's say if we have matrix A and it contains the elements 1, 2, negative 1, negative 2, 0, 1, 1, negative 1, 0. So go ahead and determine the inverse of matrix A. So first, we need to rewrite this in the form of an augmented matrix with matrix A and the multiplicative identity of a 3x3 matrix. So his matrix A is 1, 2, negative 1, so forth. The multiplicative identity matrix is going to be 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1. So now here's what we need to do. We need to perform elementary row operation.
No, Finn, you have to just hang on me.
Where's Poonam?
Okay, so I think we're back. So let me open up, let me share this as I'm trying to be cognizant of the time too. So I want to make sure we hit the things we have to hit. So let me go here and see what you guys think. I just visited one room. So I don't have Mary and Bob, I didn't get to you, I apologize. But let me see if this makes sense what I did. So this is what I'm looking at. So for 3, I added 6 to both sides. That gave me a -8 and I was done. So I just put this on as -8, filled in dot, and we're done. So for 6, I subtracted 15 from both sides. Doing that did not require me to flip the inequality sign. So it still said x is less than or equal to -15. So that's what I have going on there. And then this is what I did for 7. I subtracted 3 from both sides. Remember, subtracting doesn't impact anything. It's the dividing that does. If you have a negative, that's what I have there. And then for 8, I added 6 to both. I then rewrote it so that it said n is less than or equal to 14, reading it from n's perspective, and got that. How was that? Okay, so that's the basics. Welcome to one-step inequalities, and that's it. And there's lots of more practice on this. If you have a 2-step, it means it's a 2-step problem. So let me just do a couple of these and see what you think. Because I definitely want to get to the other graphing as well, and I don't want to have this go too late. So let me look at this. So I'm looking at this one because it looks kind of challenging. So what I would do first is I would add a 3 to both sides. Then I'm going to rewrite it. Now I have m over 3 is less than or equal to -3. Then I would multiply both sides by 3. That would get rid of the 3 in the denominator. And now I'm all set. That's going to be a -9. M is less than -9, less than or equal to. It's going to be filled in and headed that way. So you basically have a 2-step problem that doesn't have an equal sign, but it has an inequality instead. Okay, let's do 4, because that's when we're going to flip things. So look at 4. What I would not do is I would probably not distribute that -4. You could, but I think I would do this. So we can do it 2 ways, because this is a nice example. What if you just divided by -4 and divided by -4? Now, the second I do that, I circle that, because that's going to flip my inequality, because I divided by a negative. So this is gone. So I'm going to rewrite this as -4 plus 8 is less than, it's going to change direction, and that's going to mean what, 14 times? So -14. Yes. Okay, so that's what I get there. Then I'm going to add 4. That's gone. That's going to be x is less than -10. Open circle here, heading this way. So big takeaway is flip inequality. Okay, if you wanted to multiply and distribute the -4, you could have. So let's do it that way. A good rule of thumb is if you don't have to make your numbers bigger, don't. Okay, but if that's your comfort zone, totally fine. -4 times a -4 is gonna give me a 16. And a -4 times a +8 is gonna give me a -4x. And that's gonna be greater than 56. Okay, so I can subtract the 16 here. Now, another reason why I don't tend to multiply and distribute this way is because my kiddos always forget that you have a negative in front of that 4 with the x. And that's a problem waiting to happen, because once they do this piece, then they tend to get lost. So I have -4x, and don't forget, this negative belongs to that -4. And then 56 minus 16 is going to give me 40. And now you're going to divide, okay? Remember, when you divide, the second you divide by a negative, do something so that your brain knows I've got to do a change. I like circling it because it's not circled normally, so something must be up. And I have a -10, same exact answer. Okay, I do think it's a little bit safer doing it the way I did it first. But you know, we like personal challenges. If you're good and your kids are good about not losing sight of that negative, you're good. But I wanted to at least go over an example where you had to flip the inequality, because that's important. Okay, look at number 3. We can do it the same way. So I have a -3 out here. If you divide both sides by -3, the second I do that, I'm going to circle that, and this is going to become a, what, 6, a +6. I circled it, so I'm going to rewrite it as p + 1 is greater than or equal to 6. Then I'm going to subtract 1. Remember, subtracting does not flip anything. And this is going to give me p is greater than or equal to 5. So here's my 5. And I'm going this way. So that's 2 good examples of flipping. Okay, so I think be comfortable with that. Okay, so let me keep going, and then if we ever needed to go back, we could. So this is kind of similar in that it's multi-steps. Multi-steps just means that you have 2 variables probably that you're going to have to combine. So let's just do one of those. So let me look at this one. If I start on the left, always combine like terms. So the kids a lot of times think, oh, I have to change the signs. You don't change the signs if they're on the same side of either an equal sign or an inequality sign. You actually just add them together and you get 12x. You do not get 12x squared, even though many of my kids want to tell me you do. You don't. Okay, so I have that. Now it's just like the other ones. So the challenge was you have to make sure that you know how to combine like terms. And I'm going to subtract 2. I'm going to rewrite it over here. 12x is less than 12. Divide by a +12, divide by a +12. X is less than 1. Here's where 1 is. Here's where the numbers less than 1 live. That would be my answer. Okay, so that's the only thing when you have multiple steps, that's what they tend to mean, that you may have, you know, 2 variables. Like here, they had to combine first. Or maybe you get left over here with a -p, you've got to do some more work. So you have more than just 2 steps. So here again, you've got to be careful about PEMDAS. You would add 3 to both sides first. Then you would divide both sides by -6, flip it. And then once you've done that, then you can go ahead and solve it. Okay, so be careful because this over here was going to be a flip as well. So be on the lookout for flips. Okay, so then compound inequalities. Okay, so that's the situation where you have to look out for ors or ands. So let me erase what I have and we can talk about a couple of these because I think these are probably worth going through. So let's do an or and an and we'll see what the difference is. So when you have an and, that's where you want to be careful, because both conditions have to hold. So you may not get an answer, even though it looks like it's going to be all fine, you may not get an answer. When you have an or, you can just, it's either condition, as long as either condition holds, you're okay. So plotting that on a number line, no big deal. Either condition holds. Okay. If they don't say a word, then just do it like we normally have. Now, that one looks kind of goofy because you've got this 9 sitting there. Okay, so we have a problem because that 9 belongs to both pieces outside. So we want to look at that and make sure that we take account of that. This is what I mean. If you're going to move this, it's going to be a -9. I'm going to put the -9 and I'm going to put it both places. That is key. Okay, this cancels this, but you can't keep things one-sided. I mean, you want to have things balanced. So now that becomes a -10 is less than n, which is less than 8. So n lives between 8 and 10, not inclusive. So here's your 10. Here is your 8. They're both open circles, and these are your possible solutions. So if you have a number in next to that variable and you have inequality sides on either side, make sure you share that operation with both sides. Okay, so that's something we want to just definitely hit upon. Okay, so then we want to go down to the words. So if we do or, remember, as long as one thing holds, it's okay. So the first one says 2x has to be less than 10. So 2x is less than 10. Divide by 2, divide by 2. So x is less than 5. Here's where 5 is. X is going to be less than 5. Or the other one says x over 2 is greater than or equal to 3. Multiply this by 2. Do the same thing here. And that's going to get me x is greater than or equal to 6. Since it's an or, we're just going to plot the other piece of it right on the same number line. Okay, when you have an and, your solution is the overlap. Okay, so that means take one side. We're going to kind of think about it. I have x plus 8 is greater than or equal to 9. Subtract 8, subtract 8. This has x is greater than or equal to 1. That's half of my requirement. So I have to have two things hold. Let's see if we can do that. So then I have x over 7 is less than or equal to 1. Multiply by 7, multiply by 7. X has to be less than or equal to 7. Okay, so I think I can have both kind of holds. Let's see. If x is greater than or equal to 1, then I'm going to start here with a closed circle. If the other piece has to hold too, x has to be less than or equal to 7, this is closed, and this is the overlap. So you're only going to include the overlap as your answer, even though x is greater than or equal to 1 goes forever and ever to the right, and x is less than or equal to 7 goes forever and ever to the left. You can only include the overlap. Okay, that's your answer, where it overlaps. So that's the difference between and or. If there's no word, just plot it normally.
Quick question.
Uh-huh.
So you prefer not to have it written as one string?
So you really can't write.
For the and you can, can't you?
Oh, for the end you can, definitely.
That's
Definitely.
what I'm asking.
No,
I
yeah,
thought
you
you'd,
can play around with that, absolutely.
okay,
Yes, absolutely. So then, but what you have to kind of do, you have to kind of mess around a little bit, right? So you get to this point and you say, okay, I'm sorry, for the or you can, right? Because it doesn't matter, it's one or the other. So X has to be less than 5 and greater than or equal to 6. So you put X in the middle. X has to be less than 5, so less than 5 or greater than or equal to 6. So that's what you're saying, right?
I typically leave ors written twice like you have originally, and ands is one string.
Okay,
That's what I was getting at, but I don't want to do something if you don't like that.
well, the only thing is, so if you write this as one string, it's gonna be okay because there is a common solution, right?
Right,
So yeah, because you have an overlap built in, then you'd probably be okay.
okay,
Yep, I just handled each separately, made sure I had an overlap. Because if you try to write it as one statement, how do you identify when you don't have a solution?
no solution. For the, well, if there's one part of it had no solution, I'd put no solution.
Okay, but when you write it as, so if you write this, okay, so X has to be greater than or equal to 1 and less than or equal to 7. So clearly that's gonna be fine.
Right,
So this one's gonna be fine. So yeah, those will work as single statements as well.
okay.
Okay, so yeah, so that's fine. So anything else on that? I mean, the math just gets more complicated. Number one thing I do want to stress is when you are fixing something in the middle, share the wealth. So in order to make P by itself, I multiply by 2. That 2 has to be 2 places. Now it doesn't impact the 0 because of the fact it's a 0, but you still want to do that. Okay, so that's going to be P is less than 0. So it's going to be an open circle there and greater than or equal to -6, closed circle there and going like that. Okay, so just if you have to adjust in between the inequalities, do it to both. Whatever you do to one side, do to the other side, because that can easily be overlooked. Okay, so then other things that we had was the graphing. How are we at graphing? Okay, so why don't we graph these using the y equals mx plus b? So this is your y-intercept. If that's your y-intercept, that's going to go right here. Your slope is -3. So from your y-intercept, you want to go down 3, 1, 2, 3 over 1. Now you cannot just connect that with a line unless you first look here and make sure that it is an equal sign as well. So here's my line is done. Problem's not over yet. So take a test point. If 0, 0 is not on your line, use that as your test point. And then say to yourself, plug in your 0 for y. Is it true that 0 is greater than equal to -3 times 0 plus 4? So is 0 greater than or equal to 4? And you would say no. So you always shade towards the truth. The 0, 0 is not true. So you're going to shade that way. Okay, so I graph that by using y equals mx plus b, use my y-intercept first, and then applied the slope to it. Got the line, I knew it was correct because it was heading down, and that's what a negative slope is. Then I took a test point. Because 0, 0 was not on my line, I can test that. And so I plug it in, and if this is a true statement, then you would have shaded towards the 0, 0. Since it's not true, you shade away. So you always shade to the truth. Okay, so that's the best way I like to teach it. So shade to the truth. Well, I mean, not what you hear in math a lot, but that's how I do it. Okay, so same thing for this next one. Look what's going to happen. Your B is at -5. Plot that point. This is a positive slope. Remember, slope is just change in Y over change in X. So what you're going to do is you're going to go up 3, 1, 2, 3 over 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's my second point. Look at this. Since I have an equal sign in there, I am going to be able to connect those points with a straight line. If I had a strict inequality, I would have had to use the dashed line. Here's my test point, 0, 0. Is it true that 0 is less than or equal to, this is 3/5 times 0 minus 5. So is 0 less than or equal to -5? No, 0 is more than that. So you're going to shade towards the truth. And this is where you're going to shade. So Mary, does that help? We have a strategy? Okay, so that's the strategy.
Makes sense now.
Okay, good. If you have more than one line, well, how about this last one right here? Because I wanted to do one that didn't have an equal sign. If you have a Y equals line or an X equals line, and I'm speaking, assuming that the inequality says equal, just because it's better to understand it that way. If this was Y equals -4, how would you plot that? You go down to the -4 and put a straight line across. It would be a horizontal line. Because it's a strict inequality, I have to put a dashed line because the line is not part of my solution. Up to the line is, but not the line. And then do the same thing. Test your point. Is it true that 0 is greater than -4? Yep, it's finally true. So we're going to shade towards the truth, and that's where that would shade. Okay, so just be meticulous in how you do it. Remember, vertical lines are going to be up and down on the X in the question. This is also dashed because it's an inequality. Using that same test point, is it true that 0 is less than -5? And it's not, and that's why I shaded to the left. Okay, so we kind of go on with that. And then the next thing we did, let's see, do I have anything else? I had nothing else in here, but in the word problems, or in the problems, in the problem set, we had multiple lines. If you have multiple lines, what's going to happen is you take each one as they come. Plot it using your good plotting methods. Excuse me. Much better. So plot each one, determine is it dotted, is it straight? Then shade each one the direction that satisfies the problem. Well, we shade to the truth. You will have an overlap. Double shade that, and that's the solution set. So all your solution values are going to be right in there. So that has how that goes. So how do you feel about this material? Do we need to go do any more of these practice ones? Do you have a sense of it? Now that I've done that, do you have questions about the problem set that you didn't have before? Any thoughts? So we know there's no paper. I will probably check the problem set maybe like tomorrow night. So if you have rethought some things because I did this or because you just realized whatever, or you want to try to check your solving for 3 variables using the matrix method, go ahead and do that and you can resubmit it and that's fine. Okay, so, and if there's a problem resubmitting it, just let me know, but I think it's okay. I think it will still let you submit it. So that'll be fine. If not, just give me a shout and we'll take care of that. So no research paper, no journal reflection paper, but start looking for a journal that you think would be kind of fun to talk about and to apply to a classroom situation. And good news, I found a very nice video explaining how to do the matrix. So I emailed it to myself and I'll post the link on today's date because it's very fun. He does a good job going through all the steps. And so see what you think about that, because that'll be up. And we know that you can do it easily with a calculator, but it's nice to kind of know that before calculators, they were still able to do an inverse of a matrix. And there's a lot of steps, but he does a good job, I think, explaining them all. So there we have it. You survived another class. Can you believe it? And it's just about November, so we can see there's a light at the end of the tunnel. So it's a good thing. So anyway, so I'll put a spot. I'll clarify the journal stuff so that you know what you're doing. And then we're good. And so as you get ready for this quiz, if you think, oh gosh, I'd like to have some more time to ask questions, shoot me a text message. So I'll see those right away and I'll be happy to set up a time. Okay, and if we have several of you that want to go over things, we can do it as a group or whatever you want to do. Okay, because the next test is coming. Okie doke. We'll have a lovely evening and I'll post this video once I get it back from the Zoom people. And then that'll be up on today's, well, actually, I'll probably put it up on the regular site that I have down below that now sometimes works. So I'll put it there if I get all the stuff together for that video. So that'll be there as well. So look things over, check your problem set as you want to, and then I will grade it when I see it. And if you want me to redo that other paper because you had misunderstanding about what was covered, feel free to do that too. Just let me know you want to do that. Okie doke.
Sure.
Thank you,
That's-
Professor. Thank you so much.
You're
Thank you,
welcome. My pleasure. It was a lot of fun. Bye-bye.
I have a quick
Riley.
question, doctor, if you don't mind.
Yep.
I was,
Oh, I'm sorry. Did somebody else? I
no,
just,
it's okay.
no, it's just real quick, and it's actually a teacher thing. So I guess the teacher that taught some of these kids that I'm teaching now, when they were solving, for example, excuse me, a compound inequality, when you're dividing all three values by a number, they would just put one line and put that number in the middle. And inevitably, they would miss one of the divisions.
Right.
And I sat there, and because I just got done grading their test, and I'm like, would you please show the division for each value that's being divided, just because it's a lot harder to miss it.
Right.
And boy, I mean, I don't know why the teacher before me, because literally everybody in my class does it that way. And I'm like, I don't know where they're getting this.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think it'd be better to show each one because they're
Right.
not going to do it. It's just like when you are distributing, let's say you had 3 times x plus 4 in parens. I always do the little rainbow,
Yep.
to connect them. And I said, you don't have to do this, but boy, I never missed doing it to that second number
Right.
because I've always made that connection. So visually I see it, it just reinforces it.
Yeah, just got to keep hammering that to them because they're making mistakes and it's hurting them. Anyway,
Right, because-
that was it.
Yep.
I just
that's a-
was
that's a very
curious
good
if you had
point.
seen that or anything. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Well, very good. So I'll post all my stuff and have a lovely evening.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
This was a good night.
Good night.
Dr. Riley, I just have a quick question.
Yes.
So I just want to go over the requirements for the paper because I'm definitely going to resubmit. So we're
Okay.
taking a topic from the textbook and then we're weaving into articles and relating it to the topic.
Right, and then just follow along with the rubric exactly. So if I say, do a synopsis of, the topic, that means take the chapter in that textbook and give me like a summary of that. That's what the synopsis means. And then you're gonna weave in the other 2 articles. It'll reinforce what the chapter book says, and you'll have 2 other sources that will bolster your discussion.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, all right, yeah, great. But so it wasn't just you. It was probably,
Oh, I feel so much better because I looked at that grade and I looked at your comment and I was like, I'm so embarrassed.
no. There, only one person did well on that paper. And I thought, okay, it must be me. So yeah, so no, I'm so glad I said that because I wasn't gonna say that, but yes, it was not, it's not just you.
I was like, I'm probably the only one that sent the message like, hey, can I redo this? Like, I was so embarrassed. I was like,
Yeah, no, never be embarrassed. It's all a learning process and it's all good. And I would
Thank
never say, oh
you.
my gosh, can you believe this one person? I'm not gonna mention her name, but this one person really messed it up. So I'm gonna allow her to
know.
do it. Never do
I
that.
was like, wow, I literally, I told my fiance, I was like, I really bombed that paper. Like, oh my God, I didn't follow any of the directions. I didn't do what she asked me to do. And he was like, oh my God, you better email her. I was like, I'm going to email her and ask her, can I redo it? Because I messed up.
Yeah, so you're good. So just, do that. Focus on, the test too, and see if you have any questions about that. And,
Okay.
and then we're just gonna nail the whole course.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Have a great
Bye-bye.
night.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you.